I reckon there isn't typically, to be honest. I think every project sort of differs with the clients and what they sort of know about the build. Like perfect world, we'd come in as early as possible during design phase, but that can honestly vary to almost project completion as well. I mean, we'll come on through defect period and there's things being identified. So,
welcome to Fireproof, the Passive Fire podcast, where we delve into the world of passive fire protection. Join the PROFINISH team as we dig into the issues we see on site and in our industry every day and find out how you can save time, money and headaches on major construction projects. All right, welcome back to the podcast. This is episode 4. I'm Russell Whiteford, General Manager and Partner at PROFINISH Fire Protection. Today I'm going to be talking to 2 of our team members at PROFINISH. Welcome, James and Jayden.
Thanks, Russ. Thanks for having us.
Cheers, Russ. Happy to be here. Long time listener. So looking forward to finally being invited on the show.
Making your debut today. Today we're going to be talking mostly about the passive fire design process, how we approach scoping a project, what we're looking for, and what are the common issues that we see in passive fire design. So I just think for a bit of background, both of you guys are PROFINISH passive fire consultants. That's sort of the title that we go with. So what is that? What do you guys do?
Well, it's a good question. I think from our perspective, it's giving builders the best advice possible to implement the most appropriate solution on their build. So something that's going to be easy to install, but also cost effective and achieve the design guide. So if an architect wants intumescent coatings for the looks, we can sort of accommodate that. Or if they want a cheaper option like spray, we can definitely accommodate that too.
Yeah. Okay, good. Do you reckon I was going to say, do you agree with that, James?
I do. I think just providing like guidelines and guidance for them as well, just to really assist in the whole process of designing what they're after. So,
yeah. So I think like it's a bit of a niche industry. We've talked about on the show before that it's not a licensed trade in Victoria. It is elsewhere. But how do you guys sort of get to this point where you are, where you know you've built up a knowledge and I suppose a skill set in this area? How did you guys get to here? So I might start with you, James.
Yep. I took probably a bit of a different route to most people. Came straight out of uni and then actually was pretty good mates with Jai, one of the other directors here. So from that, hit him up and ended up going on the tools for about a year and a half. So did a bit of vermiculite spray, a few penetrations, a bit of board work, and then just through doing that sort of developed a skill set for what the industry needs from on site, and then got the call to come into the office. So moved into a project coordinator role and then delivered some projects across about 2.5 years as project coordinator. And then from that went to project manager as well. So plenty of experience through doing all that, and then just develop sort of how everything works on site, and then basically understand what the client's needs as well. So and then finally got the offer to come across to estimate as well to help out there and join the big fella next to me. So yeah.
Perfect. So
Awesome.
From my perspective, I've a little bit different to James. I started as a plasterer, so I'm a qualified plasterer, worked on plenty of commercial sites in my life, which I think gives me perspective on the office side versus the on-site side. So you can see what you're trying to implement with what you're designing, and you can see any holdups or on-site issues that may occur with that. So I probably 5 years as a plasterer, then I jumped into estimating with a plastering company, and then 3.5 years ago, just before COVID, jumped in with PROFINISH. So it's been a good journey for the last 3.5 years. We've obviously come a long way, and we're here at the point now where we're doing podcasts.
Yeah, that's right. It has been a journey, and over 3.5 years, things have changed a lot. I think, 3.5 years ago, coming in as a passive fire consultant, you would have been doing a lot of the marking up, a lot of the data entry, everything yourself. Now you guys essentially run a team, so you've got a team of estimators, the 2 of you, and because of that, how many projects do you think you'd be looking at any one time, Jayden?
So I'd say in my pipeline at the moment, there's probably between 60 to 80. So with that, there might be 20 or 30 tender projects, 20 or 30 live projects, 20 or 30 hot live projects. So hot live is anything we're sort of really engaging with the builders to help them with something that's going to be implemented soon. Yeah. So in the next, say, 2 months, whereas obviously some of the projects are a little bit further away where we're still trying to provide advice and good service to the clients and setting up their design to make sure when they get to site that everything's going to run smoothly for them.
Yeah.
But yeah, at the moment, probably between 60 to 80 projects.
Yeah, wow. That's a lot. And I think you've both touched on what I really wanted to get from you is that the on-site experience, I think, is really valuable because you can understand how things might be built or how they might work actually when you're on site, and you can look at them sort of from that angle, but also you've both got the experience in the office with estimating, understanding building plans and that side of thing. So if we think about the start of the process, or us first becoming involved in a project, when is that typically, James? When do we sort of first become involved in a project, or is there a typically?
Well, I reckon there is a typically, to be honest. I think every project sort of differs with the clients and what they sort of know about the build. Like perfect world, we'd come in as early as possible during design phase, but that can honestly vary to almost project completion as well. I mean, we'll come on through defect period and just things being identified. So there's no exact time we come on every job, but if there was the perfect time, we'd be going always for as early as possible, because the sooner we're in, the sooner we can help out the clients and really design what they're after and build a nice scope for them and make sure it's accurate.
I agree with that. I think it's the earlier the better. Obviously, if we get in during the tender process, we can sort of flag items that might not be compliant. We can pick them up early to get ahead of them, because there's nothing worse from a builder's perspective than having compliance issues down the lines and constructability issues because they haven't been addressed early.
Yeah.
So that can creates time lags and issues on site, which we're trying to address early to eradicate, I suppose.
Yeah, that is a big cause of stress.
Definitely.
When they're trying to get something done really quickly, and then it pushes into whether it can be achieved, then it pushes into lead times, actually mobilising and getting people on site. That definitely creates a lot of stress. So, Jayden, if you want to keep going, what do you think are some of the steps involved with you looking at a project? So you get a project or an inquiry that comes to you. What's the process that you go through to sort of dissect it and find out what the client needs?
Well, the first thing is obviously to contact the client and have a discussion with them and work out what do they think they need, and then getting all the drawings, so the structural drawings, the architectural drawings, the fire engineer reports, going through that, looking at the drawings, looking at what the architect's drawn, looking at what the consultants have put together and seeing, is that going to be compliant, and is that the best practice, and is it the most suitable for the builder? So we want to try and make it as easy as possible, obviously, for the builder, so we can, along the way, offer efficient solutions and more effective solutions to obviously reduce costs while still achieving what the architect's design is.
Yep, for sure. So you talked about that initial sort of discussion or meeting with the client to sort of understand what they're after, gathering all that information through drawings, the fire engineer's report. What's the process from there? What's the next step?
So we'll go through, filter, look at the architectural details, the spec and what's been drawn. And I suppose from our knowledge base, because we're in the industry dealing with these issues every day, we can flag straight away items that aren't compliant or aren't constructible. Mm-hmm. So we can raise them, RFI them, and work with the builder to try and implement a solution that's going to work for them. Might reduce costs, might reduce time, but it's something that we're looking to get ahead of before we get to site and there's going to be compliance issues.
Yeah, for sure. And then I suppose what I'm sort of getting at too is the next step is that we're actually going to quote the project. So once that design process is finalised, we're going to quote the project. There'll be some sort of negotiation, hopefully land the project, and then look to hand that over to a product delivery team. And that process, do you guys have a gauge on typically how long that would take? Or again, does it vary so much that it's hard to say?
I think it varies, massively. It could be $1 million project. It could be a 6-month process to win that from start to finish. You could have a $3,000 job, for example, that could be turned over within 30 minutes almost, and they get there the next day. So a lot more work goes into big jobs, but from those big jobs, you have to put so much more process into them. And then from that, it's obviously worthwhile doing that. So, yeah. Yeah,
for sure. So if we think about like the ideal time to get involved in a project, you guys have sort of both said that earlier the better. There's obviously different project milestones or different phases of a project, and passive fire protection as a service is involved in a lot of those different phases of the project. Do you guys want to talk to that at all? Like, can we, I suppose, work with someone through each of those phases if they did engage us early?
Yeah,
And
definitely. I think probably the first one is pre-construction. So a service we offer is pre-construction registers. So it is effectively designing all the penetrations and their treatments through substrates before the build even starts. So we're getting in front of it. We're putting a report together to submit to the building surveyor, have a bit of back and forth to get the penetration set before the builds even start.
Yep.
So then obviously what will happen is the build will start. Then the steel will start getting installed. As soon as the steel is installed, signed off, we can effectively come in then and start protecting the steel. Obviously before this, we've gone through the design, checked everything and making sure that it's going to be compliant what we're installing. But yeah, the next milestone for us to complete is obviously the installation of the protections to any steel that may be there. And then probably you're going to have, it's going to progress a little bit. You'll have your facades, you'll have your internal walls go in. So we can help you with installing and installation and certification of wall linings, ceiling linings, anything like that.
Yep.
And then probably the next stage we get to is before all the ceilings and areas are closed out is penetration protection, which can often be overlooked. Whereas if we get into the pre-construction register right at the start of the project, we can sort of get ahead of the game, building dummy walls to making sure when your services are run that they can be treated compliantly.
Yep.
And if there's a bit of pre-thought going into it, it can save a lot of labour in the long run.
Yeah, I mean, it saves defecting a lot of penetrations later on, which then need to be done again. And
no one likes being defected.
yeah, that's right.
I think big point on that as well. A lot of trades will try to do their service penetrations themselves, which is fine. It's kind of what the industry wants to do from their point of view. But just having us come through and do an audit as well, we can pick up on so many things or set the standard as well from the get-go to save any hassles down the track and have those defects or problems arise once ceilings are about to go in. So
That's right.
Yeah.
And then also there's mechanical protection as well. So a lot of ducting requires fire protection. So there's working with the mechanical trade as well.
Yeah.
And which comes in probably around the same time, maybe just before the penetration. So I think what you guys have touched on is there's passive fire requirements sort of right through the building process, or right throughout a project, and oftentimes and I know you guys probably experience this, that we're getting asked to look at the next step when builders get to the next step. And one of the things that you guys alluded to is that early on in a project, you can sort of break down and look at all of those requirements right at the outset if you guys are involved in the design process right at the outset.
That's right. So we get to the stage where we're installing penetration protections as soon as the wall linings are on and the services are run. That's ideal, as opposed to coming in right before practical completion, being rushed to force to fix rectifications and penetrations and things that haven't been addressed at the right time, I suppose.
Yeah,
which
for sure.
which the result can be like, I suppose, removing ceilings, removing wall linings, giving us access. So there's significant delays in the project because maybe a little forethought hasn't gone into it.
Yep. Yeah, for sure. So if we think about some of the common issues that you guys see, like you're getting projects coming to you every day, is there some recurring issues that are popping up from your point of view? And I mean, you could use different examples. If it could be a project that is in a tender, it could be a project that's come to you and they want to see it tomorrow. What are some of the recurring things that you're finding?
Yeah, I think the most common one I see is probably partition walls being fixed into where vermiculite's been spec'd on beams. So with vermiculite, it's a spray-on applied product. It's brittle, so if you're fixing your wall tracks into the vermiculite or scraping it off, you've then got a weak point in your beam there. So what we try to do is redesign that during the design stage, so they could change it from that beam being bored only, whether it be three sides, even bored to the underside and doing a multi-system, or just completely changing their wall layout as well, just so they're not actually bracing into the beam if possible. So that's probably the most common one I see from day to day.
Yeah, okay. What about you, Jayden?
Yeah, similar. I sort of have that noted down too, but there's things that we can sort of look at also, like intumescent coatings being spec'd in hidden walls. So obviously intumescent is a very expensive product and time consuming to apply. So we can sort of help to maybe substitute that for a cheaper and more efficient product if it's not going to be seen. A lot of people don't know that obviously intumescent, when it heats up, it expands and chars. So they think that you're going to get a space saving by using an intumescent coating, whereas a lot of the times that isn't the case. So you're actually better off using a board. So also with boards too, like a lot of times where we see that columns and beams are spec'd in fire rated plaster. They don't realise they might actually get a cost saving by using a ProMat board. The reason for that being is the ProMat board is single layer, so you're saving a lot of time and labour. Like the material price for fire rated plaster is a little bit cheaper, but you're going to save a lot of time on labour on the install by using different products. So we look at the project holistically, I suppose, to see where can we, what isn't correct and what isn't compliant based on the updated standards. Provide feedback on that, and we do that with every project. So that's a service we look to provide to all our clients.
Yeah, that's right. That's an interesting point because sometimes if you're just looking at material pricing, you go with what appears to be the cheaper material price, but there's obviously install times that come into play which drastically affect the price. And we know that labour is one of the key components that the builders are paying for.
Yeah, definitely.
So is there some more examples of things that you think are what not to do, I suppose, in the early stages of a project?
Probably steel design as well, just with purlins. So very common that you'll have a firewall and purlins going through both sides of your firewall, and they'll just butt their walls up through it and build it so you've got penetrations coming out both sides, just how the design was, which when you do this, you've basically failed your firewall straight away unless you put a coat back onto all those purlins that are going through it. Yeah. So what we try to do is either design it so your purlins are not actually penetrating through the wall, or we're going to have to let them know that there's going to be a couple of costs there for either doing different methods to treat those purlins, which could be a vermiculite fire spray out 300 mil. Otherwise, there's a couple wrap options you can do also. But just by designing that out so that nothing's penetrating through it, it's going to be a massive cost saver to the builder and the client. So really important one that we see pop up quite a lot on site.
Yeah. I mean, both of you guys have, when I've asked you about examples of design issues, you've both mentioned cost savings. So that's one example. You've talked about intumescent as well. Is there some other typical sort of cost savings that you guys are finding for builders?
I suppose I went into it just then with the board. But what we can do is we don't just work with one manufacturer, we work with a lot. So we can, whatever's spec'd might not be the cheapest product. So for instance, penetration protections is a good one. There's 10, 15 different manufacturers that have different testing for the exact same service through the exact same substrate. For instance, one service might need cork only, and another manufacturer might require cork and wrap only. So by knowing all the systems by the different manufacturers and knowing which one's the cheapest or the easiest to install, we're obviously reducing labour times, reducing time on site and reducing costs. So we're kind of like a specialist in a way that we know all the systems within the industry and we know what's best suited to each scenario. Yeah,
okay. Yeah, that's great. I mean, I think that really summarises it effectively. It's not just one. There's not just sort of typical cost-saving options. It's the combination that you're going to find on a project.
Yeah.
Did you have anything else that sort of come to mind?
Not really. He's kind of touched on it before, but like intumescent, for example, it's spec'd on so many projects and for areas it's never going to be seen. So it's just understanding what other products are out there, such as your vermiculite spray, which is, I'm going to say, like 5 times cheaper, even more cheaper than intumescent. And if it's not going to be seen, there's no need to have an aesthetic product like intumescent up there. So just finding where you can substitute that in and make it most useful for the project.
Yeah, for sure. We did an episode on intumescent recently where we talked all about that.
Missed that one.
Yeah, you haven't had to listen yet. One of the things that we talked about was it's the only sort of product where it's that final aesthetic finish is the fire protection.
Yeah.
But then recently we've had a project. I'm still talking about the EnviroStream project. Did either of you two? I don't think either of you two worked on that one.
Nah. Come up really good though. I saw some
photos.
So
it's probably a good example where the fire protection product is the finished product.
Yeah.
Are you guys across that one at all? What we did there?
No, I'm not, but I suppose we can touch on
Yeah.
it more. Like instruments, a lot of the times it's spec because it can be used externally, but a lot of people don't know that obviously we can use a board externally.
Yep.
It can be rendered or flashed straight over, which is still going to give you a cost reduction on the instruments coatings. We can look at cement-based vermiculites, which is going to give significant cost reductions over instruments if the aesthetic looks not as important as it would be for an instruments coating. So again, we're across a lot of different systems and different products. We can give you different options to what suits you on that project. So we're happy to work in, give you different options. As to what will suit best.
Yeah, that's right.
On the EnviroStream one as well, it wasn't my job, but I did see that come up. I think it was a kind of a good cost saving option as well, because I think it was in a paint factory or something like that. But
It was some sort of
had to separate
warehouse
some
where there's going
dangerous.
to be chemical storage.
So they sort of used a board system to isolate each area, and then from that, it was this board installed to stud framing, and then from that we painted it as well. And I don't think we even stopped it up, and then it sort of made it look nice, and it still came up.
Yeah,
really good.
Corked it and painted it. So that's where we've got an on-site coatings team through our, I suppose, sister company, PROFINISH Coatings, and those guys could come through and actually provide a finish that looked really good in the company colours.
Yeah.
That came up really well. Look, I think that's pretty much everything we wanted to cover today. I just wanted to try and draw out of you guys what are some of the things that builders can be looking for, some advice around when to get involved in, to get someone like a consultant involved in a project. I was talking to one of our suppliers, it was someone from ProMat, a representative from ProMat, and we were talking about they often get used for design advice, and I think all the other suppliers are the same, but they are limited to sort of how much they can offer that sort of service because I suppose just through time constraints and resourcing. The other thing is they're obviously going to provide advice which is centered around their products, which is great because there's a lot of good products out there. But they also agree that there's sort of, or people don't understand that I suppose a company like us actually provide that as a service. And then we can run through not only just, say ProMat products, but a full suite of products and how they might interact on a building.
Yeah, exactly. So you could frame it, look, the builder's like a doctor, I suppose. They know a little bit about a lot with passive fire, whereas we're the specialists. We know a lot about a lot in that certain field. So we can obviously give you solutions tailored to what you need based on all the manufacturers, not just locked into this is our product, this is what we're going to try and sell you. We can give you an insight into all the different products on the market to be what would be best suited for your specific circumstances, I suppose.
Yeah. So I suppose if you're out there working on a project, come and see Dr. Jayden, and he's kind of
Specialist.
Dr. Sahimes.
Specialist consultant.
No, look, I think it's been really good. I suppose any final thoughts before we wrap it up, guys?
Nah, just as we said before, the earlier you get us on a project or a passive fire specialist, it's just going to benefit the project so much, just with the design they can put into it, the thought processes, and just really streamline the on-site delivery to make sure it's no hiccups from the get-go. And then come handover time, you've got all the documentation you need and confident that everything's going to be done to compliance and as it needs to be done. So
yeah, exactly. So we just want to streamline everything as well as possible for ourselves, the builders, to make it as stress-free and to make sure that at the end of the day that everything's going to be certified and it's done in an efficient manner that doesn't push PC back.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's what it's all about. And that's the biggest reason why we're trying to do these podcasts, just offer another form of content and just continue to educate the market that we want to help save them time, save them stress, save them money.
100%.
So thanks for your time this morning, guys. It's been awesome, and let's go play some table tennis.
Let's do it again.
Thank you. Cheers, fellas.
Cheers.